What's up? My name is Quincy Hall, aka Q, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Ambitiously Driven. If I knew then what I know now. Let's go.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Ambitiously Driven Podcast. I'm your host, Riddell, and I want you to like, I want you to share, and I want you to subscribe. I want you to send this episode to somebody you believe that you think will benefit from what we're getting ready to discuss on this episode today. If I knew then what I know now, and I'm so honored, so humbled to have a phenomenal friend, a phenomenal brother, someone that I look up to. Q, how are you, man?
Man, I am well. Just want to definitely say I appreciate you for having me on. You talk about you look up to me?
Yes,
Man, I
sir.
look to you for inspiration, man. Real guy, definitely a good brother. So I appreciate you having me on.
I'm
Yes, sir.
humbled. I'm humbled. So I want to dive into the podcast of this topic. If I knew then what I know now, tell me a little bit about the younger Q.
Wow.
Walk us, paint that picture.
Well, grew up in a little small town in Kentucky, Madisonville, Kentucky. Shout out to the Ville. Grew up, man, really small circle. A lot of the things there really shaped me to the man that I am now. Grew up single parent home. Was the oldest of two other siblings that was in the house. One brother, half brother that didn't reside in the home. And really, man, I grew up, had a small circle of friends who we still remain friends to this day. Love sports, always have loved sports. I always have kind of been a low-key guy, not really one to be much in the limelight. I kind of like to sit back and be in the background, and that's really always been me.
That's what's up, man. So now that we have revisited the younger Q, I want you to kind of walk us through a hard time that you encountered in the younger Q days, and what lessons that you look back on it now that you believe you could have done differently or could help the next young man or brother do differently.
That's a good question. I think when I was younger, one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn was 19 years old. And I can remember it was after my freshman year of college.
Wow.
Some friends of mine, we all came home, gathered home, just kicking it for the summertime. We wanted to go out, have some fun. And I can remember when I talked to my mom, I had to borrow the car and didn't have a whip. And so I asked her if I could use the car to go up to Indiana. So where I'm from, it borders Indiana and Tennessee. So it's like an hour drive. So we went up to Indiana, and my mom was trying to get me to stay. She was telling me that she had a bad feeling about me going, and I was totally disregarding those feelings. It's like, I'm trying to go kick it. Long story short, we get there, and we end up basically getting jumped.
Wow.
Some friends of ours, and I'll say that one of my closest friends, he ended up getting hurt pretty bad, man, in a coma. He was in a coma for like several weeks, matter of fact. Got to the point to where, his family was going to have to make a decision on whether they were going to keep him on life support or not. And I can remember, us going up there and some friends of ours, and we were going to go see him for what we thought was the last time. And I can remember just on my way there, I was praying, just meditating. And, I know that we're not supposed to like bargain with God and, things of that nature, but you know how we do.
Right.
So I asked God then, like, if he would have wake my friend up, and like, even then, I knew that there was a call on my life. I just was disregarding that call. And, I told God, like, at that moment that, I would pursue the plan that he had for my life. And so we went up, we went to go see him. We come back home, and I can remember I was just laying in my bed. It was a Wednesday night. some friends of ours that just got back from church. I was watching TV, got a call from my pastor from my home church back then. He told me my friend had woke up from his coma.
Wow.
And so I was just kind of like, well, wow, what that, miracle. It was crazy. And so speaking to him now, man, he doesn't even remember like what happens. Wow. He remembers going. He doesn't really remember anything that transpired. And, and I think that that's just by God's grace. And I think, for me, man, the lesson that I've learned in that is life has a funny way of like throwing you curveballs. You never know what may happen, through the course of that. That happened when I was 19. I mentioned that I had two other siblings. I lost one of my siblings to one of my brothers to murder. Wow. When I was 27. My other brother I lost to suicide. Wow. In 2019. But no matter what happens, I always go back to that moment. It's okay. I know that God has a plan. I may not always understand his plan, but he always takes me back to that moment, and he lets me know that he has his hand on my life. Yeah. So that's the hardest lesson that I've had to learn, but it's confirmed. It just confirms, man, that no matter what I go through, I know that God's always with me.
That's good. I want to touch on something you said, because you said you had two siblings. Mm-hmm. One passed when you were 27, mm-hmm. and then one in 2019. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine how that have had to feel to encounter that, being close with your brothers and stuff like that. So with that, walk us through how you felt, how are you feeling now, mm-hmm. and what lessons have you learned from that loss because of what transpired with your friend, and then now these two situations with your siblings?
Two totally different situations. I was at two different places in my life. At 27, I was active duty, and I can remember I was sitting at home, man, when I got that phone call from my mom, and my brother that was shot, he was my half brother, so he was my father's son, not my mom's son. But my mom called me and let me know that he got, what had happened. And I can remember going home, and during that time, man, I was angry. I had a lot of hard feelings. And during that time, me and my father, I had not seen him nor heard from him since I was maybe 11 years old. Wow. So I knew with that being his son, that was going to be something that I had to confront. I knew I was going to have to see him, and I had all of these feelings that I was wrestling with, on top of the fact that my brother had just passed away. And I can remember, man, that when I got there, he and I had a conversation, and I was able to release some things and let some things go. He was able to share with me like his perspective on like why things transpired the way that they did. And I think what I've learned from that is that regardless of what you think why people make certain decisions, you just never necessarily get the whole perspective, a whole story, unless you have the courage to confront that person or just have that conversation with that person. Right. And it's opened up a whole world that I just wasn't exposed to. A lot of my family members on that side, I never seen them before, never met them. Saw my grandmother, his mom, beautiful lady, just was able to spend some time to understand like what makes him tick, how he and I kind of had a lot of similarities that I'm like, look, man, I've never spent a lot of time with you, and yet and still, kind of here we are, we're a lot alike. When my brother passed away in 2019, that one hit me a little bit different because we grew up in the same house. Mm-hmm. I just talked to him 3 days before he passed away. And we were tight. Like, that was my guy. And I think the biggest lesson that I learned from that is you have to do what's necessary for you to heal in instances like that before
Sure.
you get back into like the day-to-day grind. I think with him passing away, I tried to jump back into life a
Wow.
little bit too soon, and I think that I did that to try to cope with the pain. And what I found is that people are just gonna keep going, man.
Yeah.
People who don't experience that hurt or that loss, and I can remember like my wife not necessarily even knowing how to move, just because one day I was happy, another day I was just sad, and I done some things, man, that I just never thought that I would ever do. I went to a therapist. I, that's taboo, and taboo word in our community. And so, I definitely had to pray and seek God more. And I think like now, when I look back on it, like I'm, I'm probably in the best place in my life that I've ever been. I've realized that things don't necessarily happen to you, they happen for you.
That's good.
And those situations, although how traumatic they might have been, has shaped me into the man that, I'm growing into be. I'm definitely like more patient. It's taught me to appreciate people more, just because you never know what moment is going to be your last moment.
That's good.
It's taught me to love my family more, to say an encouraging word to someone that may need it, man. Just and to listen to the voice of God when He tells you to do something, man. It's important that you do it. And there are some things that I definitely wish that I could have said to my brother on our last conversation, but we wasn't on that type of time. We was talking stuff about football, but I wish that I would have told him that I loved him and those types of things. But I've just kind of learned to live with those moments, man, and to just appreciate the journey more or less.
Walk us through healing, because that was something that stood out to me when you said you didn't really heal completely. You hop right back into your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important to heal before you just hop back into the norm? Why do you believe that,
So
especially for men?
if you think about it, like from a medical standpoint, right? Let's just say that you get injured or you get hurt or you suffer some sort of traumatic injury. Like your body, it naturally, has to heal, whether you
Right.
go through some sort of surgical intervention or if it takes like, medication or whatever. And if your body doesn't properly heal, then other areas of your body start to compensate, and they have to compensate to support like that injury.
Great.
Like your emotions, they function the same. If you don't properly heal, then there's other areas that might rise up that you didn't realize was there, and they start to compensate for you dealing with that hurt. Fuse was shorter. I had a low tolerance for a lot of things, had low desire to do things that I love to do, and you understand and what the trigger is or the cause is, but it's really and truly, man, you have to have the courage to actually go and face like what that trauma is, because and a lot of times we're scared of it because you just never know what other trauma it might open up. You know what I'm saying? And so me having to do that, and actually, man, I'm just grateful for my wife, because she's the one that encouraged me to go and like, look, it's only so much I can give you, bro. You gotta go talk to somebody. And so her encouraging me, it allowed me to go and process a lot of things that just I never really understood that was there. And really and truly, it just helped shape me and help heal other areas to make me more complete, so I wasn't compensating in like those other areas.
Wow. Wow. In that time, is there something that your younger self or during that time that you believed in those moments that when you reflect back now, you can say, wow, that really wasn't true on what I believed then? Was there a moment or a time that you believed, like, I believe this, but looking back, like, I should have never believed that?
I think that it's hard for me to point to any one instance or occurrence that I would say that if I look back then, I wish that I've known now. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
that I've had to learn at a later age that I wish that I knew when I was younger. I mean, a lot of our experiences are shaped by our environment, the people that you surround yourself with,
That's good.
your household. And I think that in the household that I grew up in an environment to where like I had to, I had to grow up quick.
Yeah.
I had to take care of like my brothers and my sisters. My mom, worked second shift, and so she wasn't there a lot of the times during the day. And so there was a lot of things that I did not get when I was younger. I didn't get, talked to about, how important the education is, or how important it is to manage your finances, or just different things that as an adult you have to learn on the fly.
Right.
I think that for me, the biggest misconception that I've had to debunk is it does not matter where you come from. It doesn't matter the environment that you grew up in. It doesn't matter your situation or your circumstance. You have the opportunity to make your life what you want your life to be.
Right.
If you put God first and, allow him to order your steps, then really, man, sky is the limit. And I think I spent a lot of time when I was younger focusing on so much on like what I didn't have. Man, if my dad was around, then I could have been this, or if I learned, you know, about money earlier, then maybe I could have bought my house earlier. Or if I learned about, getting the importance of an education, like how much further would I be in life right now? But I realized, man, that like, although I've learned these things later on in life, like God's got me right where he wants me. Yep, my dad wasn't in the picture when I was growing up. He's there now. How about you make the most of it?
Yeah.
I didn't graduate from college fresh out of high school. It took me, I was 35 when I got my first degree.
Wow.
It hasn't impacted what God has been able to do with my career. So just different things, man. You don't necessarily have to let your environment shape you. You can go out and, by God's grace, make your own opportunities.
That's good because, whew, a lot of us, we allow environment to be a stigma. And it's very crucial that you don't allow what you're going through and environment to have that stigma or that aroma or that scent with you that you carry.
Yeah.
I don't want to go biblical, but there's a story in the Bible where there's a man waiting at the pool, and he was waiting on his healing, and the only way he could get his healing was by getting in the pool. But
Waiting for somebody to pick him up.
Yeah, that environment. He was
Yeah.
waiting, and he excuse was, I can't go because someone keeps getting in front of me. And all Jesus said to him was, pick up your bed, pick up your stuff, and walk. He didn't have to get in the pool, but he just said, just walk. So oftentimes we get stagnant and complacent in what we're going through. But with you, and that stood out to me because you said you didn't have your father in your life, to talk to you about finances and education, but through all of that, you didn't let that keep you stagnant. You didn't let that keep you complacent. You allowed God to direct your path, even though it may not have been right there in that moment. You said you didn't have your first degree or whatever until later in life, in your 30s.
Mm-hmm.
You could have stayed complacent and not even go through with it. So with that, can you speak to somebody that may be watching this who may be going through the same thing, may not have their mother, their father, or what they think they need in their life to move? How can they move with what negativity or problems or situations that they have based on everything you've shared already?
That's loaded. I think that we all come from a wide variety of circumstances.
Right.
Life happens to any one of us at any given time, and a lot of times it happens when we're just not prepared for it.
That's good.
I think that if I were to speak to someone that, may be going through, just life just happens to be life, and at this moment, I think you have to understand and really know and realize that, what you're going through, there's a purpose behind it. And I think that sometimes you have to get to what and the rationale behind like what that purpose is. And it doesn't always feel good. It, a lot of times what's good to you is not good for you. And so you have to pick up the pieces. A lot of times you have to put those pieces together. And sometimes it may take a while. Might be a lot of pieces that you have to pick up. But in order for you to be able to move forward, it's imperative that you do pick up those pieces. Good. No matter how painful it may be, you have to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you are enough, that you don't necessarily have to compare your journey to anybody else's. Like, your journey is your journey. And, sometimes we get caught up with the whole social media thing, and you look at somebody that may be the same age as you, that may be further advanced than what you think that you should be. But, a lot of times that's really only what you see. You don't understand, like, what that person has gone through to get to where they are. And really, you just have to put one foot in front of the other. You got to take it one day at a time. Like you said, not to get biblical, but, it says that the steps of a righteous man are order. So if you understand that, then you realize that you may not necessarily know the direction that you're going to be going in. You may not necessarily see how far that path is lit up, but, that's where, we have to walk by faith, not by sight. And you just put one foot in front of the other and just trust God that he's going to direct your path. Man, like, you think about just different characters in the Bible, and, we definitely not trying to, get too deep, but, like David, after he was anointed king, he had to hide in caves and things like that for a number of years before he actually became king. Joseph had to go through what he had to go through before he was second in command in Egypt. A lot of times, man, our relationship with Christ is synonymous with suffering. And, I know that may go against like what we've been taught or trained, but unfortunately it is, you know what I mean? And so we have to realize that, we're going to go through stuff, but he's always with us. He's promised to never leave us nor forsake us. And, he'll always be with us. So
that's good. I got one more question for you. And that question is, has there been a failure that you've encountered that really pushed you to recover to be more better? I know there's plenty.
Plenty.
But one that...
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use one that's a little bit more recent. Um, so I go to Fellowship Bible Baptist Church now, and I am a minister of the gospel there. So I and this is we laugh about it now. It's actually really really funny. Me and my wife joke about it all the time too. So I met with my pastor, Toller Morgan, let him know that, I've been called to ministry, so on and so forth. And, we had a conversation, and he's like, okay, cool. So before I, introduce you to the fold, you got to, show me, your credentials, so on and so forth. So I did that. He made me write a paper, wrote a paper.
Wow.
And so he met with me a few weeks later, told me my paper and everything was good. So we have this, we have clergy clinic once a month. And basically that's where we preach, and we go through the process of preaching, things of that nature. And it's him in the room and the other minister. So can you imagine just being in a room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you having to preach a sermon in front of Toller Morgan, right? And so I volunteered to go, man, and this was kind of 2 months after he invited me to actually be a part of the clergy.
Wow.
So I went and, preached my sermon, and, you have to stand there and you get your feedback. Wow. So all the other clergy went, and when when you hit a home run, and when you had a sermon that has some work to do, bro. I had some work to do, right? But I was not expecting the feedback that I got from Pastor. So after I got done, he looked at me. He said, "Q, that sermon was horrible."
Oh, gosh.
My heart sank.
Oh,
it
man.
sank, man. It sank. And so he gave me his feedback or whatever. I went back to my seat, and, but I listened intently to what he said.
Wow.
And to be in a room with him and to watch how he will take a message that you just preached, no notes, nothing. He will re-preach it like right in front of you, and it gives you like a whole different perspective. So I waited a few months, but I was like, you know what? I got to get this taste out of my mouth. So I went again in October. And so, he always says he doesn't want to make us clones, but, he wants to give us tools to succeed.
Right.
So I went again in October. And once I got finished, he said, "Q, you ever seen Bad Boys 2? And I was like, yeah, I've seen Bad Boys 2. Like, who hasn't? So he's like, you remember at the end of the movie when Martin shot the guy? And he's like, nah, that's how you shoot. And I was like, yeah. He said, nah, that's how you preach.
Wow.
And so I went from that to the very next month. He called me, gave me the opportunity to preach in front of the congregation, the fellowship. And listen, I don't know too many preachers that's going to turn down an opportunity to preach at fellowship. So he could have called anybody, but he gave me an opportunity. And, by God's grace, he's always been like, now you have to become a chef, not a cook. So, I've been able to share the gospel there 3 or 4 times now, and preached 2 Sundays ago.
Yeah.
And he, after that sermon, he looked at me. He said, "Now you're a preacher."
Wow.
He said, "You grew up today." So, yeah, that's one of the more recent failures. But there's been a lot.
So with him saying that, from your last message and sermon, how did that make you feel?
I think it's a pretty dangerous place just because you try not to get wrapped up in.
Right.
But I would say to be affirmed by him.
Yeah.
Someone that I look up to, he's my preaching hero. It meant a lot. It just let me know that, although I know I got a lot of growth to do, that I'm on the right track. And so I take it humbly, but at the same time, I know I got to get back on my grind.
So in short, what did you do that was horrible to make this second time that you went Now that's how you preach. What did you do, or what did you do differently?
Um,
And you ain't got to be more so detailed, but
yeah, for sure, man. Mainly, you just stick to the text. A lot of you get rid of ideas. You do have to use your imagination.
Yeah.
You do have to, but really, everything that you need is in the text that you read. And so what I learned is, if you get a passage, you have to exhaust that passage, and really and truly, you get to the original meaning of that passage. And there's certain tools and things of that nature that he gives you. But it's I think when I preached the first time and it was horrible, I wasn't sticking to the passage. It was a lot of other stuff and didn't deal with the passage itself at all. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you grew up.
I'm glad I grew up too.
I'm glad you grew up, man.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you shared that transparent moment because has helped me, and I know it's going to help those that are watching. Is there any final words you would like to say as we get ready to conclude this episode to anybody that's watching this?
Yeah, I would just say that, whatever you're going through, big or small, you can get through it. That you have a plan and a purpose, and there's good people out there, man, that will help you get through it. I don't think I've ever told you this, man, but I'll just say this before we head out. Like after 2020, I deleted like my social media and like all of that other stuff. I just want to say, man, I appreciate you because I can remember, man, you called me one day out the blue,
Wow.
and it kind of helped get me back on that right track. Wow. You were one of the few people that did call me once I got off social media. So you are like a real guy, real brother. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you.
And you say that, like I say, you look up to me. Like I say, man, I also look to you for inspiration.
Man, I'm humbled, so humble. I appreciate you, man. And that's a part of the environment, man. To movement, you got to have the right environment. So I'm glad to have you as one of the people to be in the right environment to help me move through life, man.
Yes, sir.
Listen, I hope you've been blessed by this podcast and this transparency from my brother, Quincy, a.k.a. Q.
Yes, sir.
Like, share, subscribe until next until next time. God bless.